let's not be so serious on the first date. Let it be fun. But today's about laying out a simple, easy guide to better dating. Okay, so first dates, be casual. I'm not saying be fake, be yourself, 100%. But let the lighter side of you show through. Be happy and casual and fun, and just don't put so much weight on the first date. You're just getting to know. So what if it doesn't work out long term? Maybe you have a new friend, or you're gonna learn something. So just go into it like, what can I learn and what fun experience can I have? And take the pressure off of yourself, because that pressure, people feel that energy, and that can really change the whole vibe, and maybe even change if there's a second date at all coming from them or from you. So don't do that. Just be slow, like in the sense of, don't worry if it's going to last forever on the first couple of dates. And some people don't have a problem with that, and that's great. That's awesome. But the people that sometimes are like hardcore, right? And I totally get it. You don't want to waste your time or lose time. You just kind of want to get to the point. Totally respectable. I love it. That's great. But I think sometimes that works against us when we really just need to focus on just showing our true happy energy, and just, it's light, it's casual, it's not so serious, this is me. Like, let's just see if we have any kind of fun together, right? I mean, because that should be one of the most important things anyway, to decide if you even want a second date, right? Because if there's none of that, you might not even want to go on a second date either. So why waste the time like probing or asking, too many serious questions, or worrying about wasting time when you really just need to see if there's any interest in the person at all. So I would say keep it like that for at least like first, second, and maybe third date. So third date, it's like, okay, are you willing to, like, are you having fun? Are you willing to just kind of figure out if this is going anywhere? Like, how much time are you willing to, invest in just these light-hearted dates? I mean, because if you're having fun and you want to keep it going like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, absolutely, take this guide and feel flexible to change it a little bit. But I'd say maybe, by the fourth date, maybe third, start asking some questions. Like, progress it a little. Interview style, go a little bit, if you're ready to kind of just like figure out, okay, is this, are we more just regular friends, or do we want to take this further? Is this relationship material? Okay. Then if you want to kind of start being like that, you kind of have to treat it like an interview. And I don't mean to say that to pressure you or, other people, but I think that's the best way to think of it. If you want to have a lifelong committed relationship with someone, potentially, or even just long-term serious relationship, it matters. The big questions matter, and it could be set up very simply like an interview. Like, what are your values? How would you react in this situation? Would you be okay if I did this? This is what I'm okay with. How do you feel about that? I mean, I think those are all questions that are so important if saving time is a concern. If you don't want to just waste your time on a relationship that might not really lead anywhere, these are the important questions that I think sometimes people overlook, or they're afraid to ask, or they're afraid to know the answer of, or they just don't really necessarily know at all that they're important to ask. I didn't used to know that they were important questions to ask. Huge mistake on my part. Lost a lot of time, a lot of valuable time. So ask now, after a few dates, interview them a little bit. I'm not saying intimidate them, obviously, but ask the meaningful questions. Ask the deeper questions that are really, truly important to you. What are, what concerns do they have? you might need to directly ask people, do you want a committed relationship? Make sure that that's even what they might be looking for at all. Some people don't want that, and that's perfectly fine. And if you changed your mind because you were just having so much fun seeing them casually, then by all means, keep it that way. You know, if you both are on the same page, I just think it's so important to be on the same page. That's what people miss a lot. And I think that's what can get couples into trouble. Or just dating, you know? And then because you can't really blame somebody if you knew from the start that they didn't want a committed relationship, right? Because you absolutely can't blame somebody if they didn't want to be in a committed relationship and they maybe hurt you in some way or disappoint you later if you never asked them. You know, if that question never even came up and you guys weren't on the same page, it's kind of difficult to be mad at anyone when it wasn't made clear. I've been in that dynamic several times. I think when things just aren't clear, a lot of that falls into people not truly knowing what they want. That's a whole nother video. You have to really know what you want, or no, you're just not going to get anywhere. You know, if you don't know what you want, how's the other person going to know what that's a whole other thing. But okay, so after, on like the fourth date or whatever, interview them, get some real answers, get some more connection going and seeing how that goes, right? Okay, so that's important. So you've answered the questions, or you've asked the questions, they've answered the questions, you've kind of taken note, right? Okay, so that might take a couple of dates, depending on how many questions you have and all of that, of course. So like, let's say now maybe it's the 6th or 7th date. Really start paying attention. Okay, this is how this person said they felt about this type of issue. Okay, and I just saw that issue come up. Did they handle it or react in the way that I would expect them to based off how they said they would or how they said they felt about it? Huge. Huge, huge, huge. Believe what people show you. Believe them when they tell you that they're a certain person. That's a huge, so take note. If their actions don't match up with what they say, and you just kind of in the back of your head are like, something's kind of, that was kind of weird. They said this, but they kind of acted like this, or they did this. Now, I'm not saying, one time off, write them off, not necessarily. But don't ignore it. Take that seriously. Make a mental note, journal it, something. But just kind of, don't just rationalize and make excuses and diminish that. And kind of continue to do that for a few more dates or a few more times that you're together. Just really pay attention. How are they on the phone? Are they reliable? Do they show up to the dates on time? Do they call you back when they say they're going to call you back? Do they call you at all? Do they respond, to your texts? I'm not saying immediately. Everybody has things going on, within reason. But if you've expressed to them that you prefer to talk on the phone versus texting, and they only ever text you and don't really respect the fact that you've requested, some phone conversation because that means a lot to you, they might be testing you, and that might not be necessarily that might be a negative thing, and that might be something that you have to consider it. Either they don't like to talk on the phone, and that's something that maybe could be worked out, but if it's really important to you and they're either just ignoring your requests or it's something that they're uncomfortable with, that deems probably a conversation about. And then you really have to ask yourself, is this something that I can handle? If they have a good reason or they're willing to try, then maybe it'll work. But I wouldn't push your core values, something that you really value aside. Don't ignore that, especially early on. We're supposed to be putting our absolute best foot forward, right? So if people are already kind of sending red flags at the very beginning, more than likely it's not going to get better 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. You know, usually people wear off and slack off over time. So, you know, if the bar's here instead of here when you start, just think of how low it's going to be as time goes on. I mean, not to put it in a negative extreme sense, but my experience, very real thing. So pay attention to not only what they say, but then do they follow through? Do you feel like you're listened to? Do you feel like you're respected? You know, is there just an off feeling? You know, do you feel like you could trust them? Do they have good relationships with other people around them? You know, do they seem reliable with other people? Just, you'll know if you look for it. You just have to know to look for these things. Okay, so take note of that. So take note of how they act with the things that you've discussed, right? Okay. So then the next step would be to weigh out the findings. So this is kind of, I would say, so this is like kind of step 4, kind of like the last step really, is you have to weigh out. Can you see yourself being in a relationship like this long term? Because you're gonna see that the person is not perfect. Nobody is perfect, right? So they're more than likely not going to be perfect. And that's a good thing. It would be very boring if everybody was completely perfect and blah, blah, blah. If they are perfect, I would say pay extra close attention, because that's worrisome, in my opinion. If you ask me, I'd say if you're acting too perfect and saying all of the perfect right things, be a little cautious, in my opinion. Can you handle how it feels when you're with them? How they speak to you? How they speak to other people? Do you have a lot in common? Do they respect you? Do your values meet up? Do their behaviors match what they say they value? Do they put time? How are do they put time on the things they actually say are their priority? If you have a need to be a priority in somebody's life, do you feel that they have the ability to put you as a priority? Or are they a workaholic and you don't know how that's going to fit into your life? Extremely important. And that doesn't mean that the people have to change who they are, but you have to decide earlier on, hopefully rather than later, if it's something that you can handle, because your needs are just as important. So weigh it out. Can you handle the flaws? Can you handle maybe the potential conflicts that you see, occurring in the future because of X, Y, and Z? If you guys have already had a conflict, how did you resolve it? Did you resolve it in a healthy way? Did you actually feel like you were heard and things got solved? Or did they just ignore you, give you the silent treatment, walk away, you never talk about it? Those are huge things, because those are things that are going to follow you into a relationship, a marriage, a lifetime. So weigh it out. Is it worth it to you? Is it something that you want to take the chance? Flaws, and that's awesome, but it has to be flaws that don't sacrifice what is important to you. It can't damage you. You have to be okay with it too, and not ignore your needs. It's been a very huge problem for me most of my life. I didn't even always know what I wanted. But it's extremely important that you know what you want. Like I said, that's a different video. But assuming that you know what you want and that you can communicate it, for this video, these are the steps of how to actually apply this stuff dating to avoid unhealthy traps and cycles in relationship where it's just, running on a hamster wheel, not getting anywhere, right? I want to save you some time. I want you to learn from some of my mistakes and save you time and happiness and heartbreak. So compromise. So yes, back to you just don't want to compromise what is important to you because you're being too nice or people pleaser, or you think that, oh, you know, they're going to change or they're going to get better. People don't always change that easily, unfortunately. I think people can change. They have to really want to. It's not really something that's done easily. And nobody should necessarily ask somebody to change. You know, I mean, that's up to them. You don't want to necessarily try to force someone to change. You know, this isn't about that. That's not what this is about. This is about being honest with each other, and then you both weighing out if you're a good match or not. And being honest in a healthy way. And yes, compromise, just to be clear, compromise is expected in any long-term relationship. When you bring two completely different people together, it can't work without compromise. Not happily, anyway, without compromise on both sides. You both have to make sacrifices and compromises, but it shouldn't be to the extent that you're compromising the most important things to you to please somebody else or whatever. You know, like, or to keep peace or anything like that. It needs to be pretty equal, and it needs to be something that you're willing to compromise for. And allow yourself that if it's not right, allow yourself to walk away before you lose too much time. Or just know that if you want to keep going on with this person, okay, maybe it's just a short-term relationship then. And that's perfectly fine. But just knowing that makes a huge difference versus expecting and wanting something long-term and then having to compromise and suffering in a long-term relationship, right? Kind of getting stuck, or a marriage. Getting stuck. That's not how we want to spend our relationships, and that's not the position that we want to put anybody else in either. So it can all be avoided. Okay? So keep it light on the first few dates. Be your fun self. Show your authentic self, but just show the lighter side of you. Then as it progresses a little bit, get more into like the interviewing, the serious, deep, important core questions, and take note of their answers. Then, you know, the third section of the dates, start really paying attention to how they act. Do their actions match their words? Do the behaviors show reflection of what they said means the most to them? Very, very, very important. Very important. And I would say that's the stage that you drag out further if you need to. You know, if you need to drag it out multiple dates because you're just not sure, give yourself that time. There's no timeline on, you know, like I said, mold this into your lifestyle and what you need. This is just kind of a guideline. Okay, and then 4, the last, you know, stages of it, maybe before you decide to go into a long-term relationship or anything more serious, make sure that you've collected enough data, asked enough questions, gotten enough information back from them to weigh out if you guys are really a good match. You'll know in your heart, and be honest with yourself. Hope that they be honest with you, obviously. And is it right? Can you compromise? Can things work out? Will you be happy? And you're already, just doing that, already many steps above how most people approach dating. Already so much healthier. I hope this helped you guys. I loved sharing this because I did not know to do this growing up. So I would have loved to know this kind of information. So I have the confidence it's going to help some of you out there. And let me know if you have any questions. Leave it down below. And thank you so much. Have a good day.